Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, the wind tearing at your clothes, the sea churning far below. Now imagine that cliff is not just a natural wonder, but a seat of power, a fortress of secrets, and a place where the innocent vanished without a trace. This is Capri, and this is the story of what happened when an emperor turned paradise into a prison. By the year 26 of the Common Era, Tiberius, known officially as Imperator Tiberius, Caesar Divi Augusti Filius Augustus, made a decision that would reshape the Roman Empire. He abandoned the marble palaces of Rome, the Senate chambers, the forums bustling with citizens, and retreated to the island of Capri, a rocky outcrop rising from the Bay of Naples. It was a place nearly impossible to invade, favored for its steep cliffs and natural grottos. For centuries, Capri had served as a strategic lookout, a vantage point over the Tyrrhenian Sea. But under Tiberius, it became something else entirely. It became a hidden seat of imperial control, far from the Senate, far from the plebeians, and far from the gossiping elite of Rome. According to Suetonius in his work The 12 Caesars, Tiberius chose Capri in part for its isolation and its geography. The island's dramatic terrain allowed for unparalleled privacy. 12 villas were constructed across the island, each strategically placed to command views and ensure seclusion. The most notorious of these was the Villa Jovis, perched atop the eastern cliffs, nearly 1,200 feet above sea level, surrounded on three sides by sheer drop-offs. Into the sea, Villa Jovis was more than a palace. It was a fortress, an architectural embodiment of Tiberius's increasingly reclusive rule. But make no mistake, he did not merely retreat. He ruled from afar. Tiberius maintained imperial correspondence, issued decrees, and gave orders to the Senate from Capri. Visitors were screened carefully, and access to the emperor was tightly controlled by Lucius Aelius Sejanus, commander of the Praetorian Guard. Suetonius records that no one could speak to Tiberius without permission, not even the highest magistrates. Sejanus, meanwhile, used the emperor's physical absence to consolidate power in Rome, a factor that would lead to catastrophic consequences. The emperor was present in power, but absent in person, and that absence created a void that Sejanus eagerly filled. But Capri offered more than strategic benefit. It was also a place where scrutiny diminished and secrecy flourished. Tiberius's move isolated him not only politically, but morally. Beyond the jurisdiction of the Senate, protected by cliffs and Praetorian guards, the emperor could indulge impulses unchecked by law, tradition, or shame. Capri was no refuge. It was transformation. And the consequences for those brought to the island, especially enslaved children, would be unimaginable. According to Suetonius, on the island of Capri, far from the eyes of Rome, Emperor Tiberius gathered a human court of unspeakable design, a retinue of boys and girls, many still in their childhood, selected for their beauty, their youth, and above all, their helplessness. In the life of Tiberius, Suetonius paints a lurid picture of the emperor's retreat to Capri, alleging he surrounded himself with so-called pisciculi, little fish, a term he uses for young attendants, trained to entertain him. These claims, vivid and disturbing, appear only in Suetonius, whose biographies often blur the line between fact and moralistic gossip, while other Roman sources, like Tacitus, confirmed Tiberius's secluded and paranoid retreat to Capri, fostered rumors of depravity. They lack these specifics. Yet the consistency of the accusations and the silence that followed suggests something darker than rumor alone. These children may have come from across the empire. Some could have been enslaved through conquest or sale, potentially taken from provinces such as Syria, Gaul, or the Greek East, regions known in Roman culture for producing what the elite regarded as delicate or refined features. Roman slave markets are known to have frequently dealt in young boys and girls described in inventories with unsettling precision: age, skin tone, eye color, and gratia, corporus, or grace of the body. These were not people, they were commodities. Others may not have been enslaved, at least not legally. These could have included libertior, children of freedmen, potentially handed over as tokens of loyalty or offered in hope of imperial favor. Roman society, particularly in the imperial period, allowed grotesque flexibility in the treatment of the powerless. Legality meant little on Capri. In such a scenario, once brought to the island, no child, slave, or freeborn may have retained the protection of law or lineage. They became property. They became invisible. Transport arrangements were likely handled with considerable discretion. It is plausible that vessels from the classis Missinensis, the Roman fleet based at Misenum, were occasionally utilized for discreet imperial errands between the mainland and Capri. The children may have been moved aboard well-appointed ships under a carefully constructed guise, perhaps as young attendants, musicians for the imperial household, or companions for other members of the court. Such terminology within the imperial circle could easily serve to obscure their true purpose. Upon their arrival on the island, they were probably housed in dedicated quarters among the emperor's sprawling villa complex. There, they would have received instruction not just in performance arts, but more critically, in the strict codes of silence, absolute obedience, and the specific behaviors demanded by their unique station. To Tiberius, Capri was a sanctuary, but to these children, it was a prison without escape, where identity vanished and the sea swallowed every trace. Capri's isolation concealed these spectacles from public scrutiny, but the villas, the grottos, and the surviving sculptures still testify to the emperor's taste for turning myth into living theater, where the powerless, especially children, were reduced to actors in a performance that only one man could direct. Ancient writers describe how Tiberius kept strict control over his secluded world. According to Tacitus in the Annals, those accused of treason or disobedience under Tiberius often met there end without trial, dispatched in secrecy. Capri, with its sheer precipices and isolation, provided the perfect stage. Suetonius recounts a grim image: condemned individuals hurled from the cliffs of Villa Jovis into the sea below, their bodies broken on the rocks and lost to the waves. Soldiers were stationed at the base to ensure no one survived. This practice became so notorious that locals referred to the spot as the Tiberian Leap. For the children and attendants confined on Capri, the threat of punishment was ever present. Failure to obey, resistance, or even the loss of imperial favor could result in disappearance. While Suetonius's accounts must be read with awareness of senatorial hostility, the consistency of reports suggests that violence was an integrated part of life on the island. Punishment was not limited to execution. Tacitus records that those accused of dishonoring the emperor might be whipped or mutilated before being killed, practices consistent with Roman law for servi. Enslaved persons. Enslaved attendants who revealed secrets risked immediate death. Those who were suspected of betrayal faced torture. Even freeborn individuals were not protected. Charges of maestas, treason against the emperor's dignity, were expanded during Tiberius's reign, allowing him to condemn senators, knights, and commoners alike, sometimes with little evidence. Capri thus became a microcosm of imperial Rome's darker realities. The grandeur of its villas concealed an underworld where obedience was absolute and mercy was absent. The same cliffs that offered the emperor sweeping views of the Tyrrhenian Sea also served as the empire's most secret gallows. For those who served Tiberius on Capri, life and death balanced on the emperor's will. Beauty, loyalty, or innocence could bring favor, but a single mistake could end. With a silent fall into the sea, erased without trace, another life lost beneath the shadow of the villa. Capri exposes how absolute power can warp an empire and break innocent lives. Tiberius turned an island paradise into a theater of secrecy where beauty, fear, and death blurred. The echoes of that rule remind us that unchecked authority still threatens the vulnerable today. Which modern refuge of power might hide similar shadows? Comment below with your thoughts. A party of Marines were stationed below, Suetonius wrote, and when the bodies came hurtling down, they struck at them with oars and boat hooks to ensure that they did not survive.